Okay, so after I've decided the general design of where my handles are going to go, then I'm going to take a little bit of soft clay, okay, and I'm going to take a little bit of water on my hand, and then I'm going to roll a coil. Okay, I'm going to roll it just in my hands at first. Okay, if it starts getting up long, then I'll just take a little bit off the clay. Okay, now if we're overanalyzing how to make a round coil, let's do that for a second. Let's imagine that this line here is the beginning and end of this coil, okay? Now to make a round coil, this coil should spin one full revolution, okay? And if it goes more than one, it's going to be flat. If it goes less than one, it's going to be flat. So what I like to do is hold one side, twist it towards myself, start in the middle, and work my way out. One full revolution. Okay, then I'll flip it over. You'll find that your dominant hand may press harder than your offhand. So rather than trying to compensate by pressing easier or harder with either hand, I just press however and then flip it over 180 degrees, and that will even out in the end. Okay, beautiful. So there's the beginning of my coil. Do want a little bit of water on there, not too much. If I'm going to do too much, it's going to get sticky, and I do not want that. So there's my coil. I want this on the shoulder of my piece, and I want it to have some lines in it like a pulled handle. Now, pulling handles is a challenge for a beginning level ceramics student, so I'm not requiring you all to do that. However, it still looks nice, so this is how you can get that look without actually making pulled handles. So a little bit of water, and it's got to be slippery. Okay, go back and forth. Now, this is long enough to do two handles. Okay, and that's important because if I want to put two handles on my piece, all of you, some of you may not even putting any handles on your piece, which is fine. But if you want two handles that are matching, then it's important to use one longer coil and then just split it in half so that they're the same diameter. So a lot of water, back and forth like this, and then I'll flip it over. So it's got plenty of water in it. When I have wet clay like this, it makes it easier to bend. Okay, I don't want my clay to crack when I'm bending it. And it depends on how hard your the arch of your handle is. But in my case, it's going to be a bit of a hard turn. So I want to make sure that the clay is nice and wet so it doesn't crack. As far as the thickness is concerned, make sure that, you know, go around your house, find a pot that has a handle, and try to make something about that same thickness. If you make it too thin, it's going to be likely to break. A lot of water, so it's slippery. Beautiful. If you want to do just a coil, that's fine too. This is for you overachievers out there if you want to make a fancier handle. Okay, so that's the beginning of my handle. One piece for two handles. So you're going to need some slip. Remember, slip is the glue that holds our clay together when we're trying to join things. So what I like to do is take a peanut butter jar, just a plastic peanut butter jar, and then every time I'm done, I'll just throw my scraps into the jar with a little bit of water, and eventually it will be like this little pasty stuff. It should be 50% water, and it should be pretty smooth. I'll just mix it up until it's smooth as like pudding. That's what you're shooting for. It may take you a little while. Use a needle tool, use a fork, use something. There's no poisonous materials in this clay, so if you have to use a fork from your kitchen, it's, you know, it'll wash off. something I should say, since we are working from home, is I would recommend don't put any of this down your sink. You need to make sure you have a bucket that with some water that you can use to clean up with. And if you have to dump it outside, dump out your scraps outside. Don't dump this slip down your sink. Okay. Once I get it to be pretty smooth, then I'll switch over to a brush so I can mix it. As you go, you'll find that you'll have plenty of slip, but this is the first piece of the semester, so you probably don't have any slip yet. So I'm just showing you how to mix your slip. Now, after your slip is smooth and good to go, about the consistency of pudding. Okay, remember our dairy equivalencies. Slip is like pudding. Okay, we're going to take our slip, set it off to the side for a minute. Now, when I did my handles on this piece earlier, I was eyeballing something like this. Okay. I think that my handle here might be a little bit too thick, but I think it's going to be fine. After I've gotten this, I am going to just cut it in half so I have more than I need. Okay? Just eyeball it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay? So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to be placing my handle right here and here. So I need to score that up. So I need to use my serrated rib. Remember, anytime you're joining leather hard clay, you need to make sure you score, slip, and then score again. So scratch up the spot where it's going to go. Now I'm going to put it on two sides, but I'm going to just do this for right now. So I'm going to score it, and then I'm going to take my piece, my practice piece, and just eyeball where the bottom of the handle is going to go. And it's going to go right about here. Okay, beautiful. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of slip. Now remember, don't put water. Water is just going to cause it to crack. Use slip. Slip is like your ceramic glue. Okay, and any place that's touching, you should score it. So in this case here, I'm going to score the top of my handle like this. So I score it, slip it, score it again. If I really wanted to, I could put some slip on here too, but this is plenty. Okay, let me just turn this to face you guys so you can see what's going on. So then I'm going to push it on with my thumb. Now I'm right-handed, so I'm going to just hold the back end with my right hand and the front end with my left hand. I'm going to just bring it around like this and score underneath that spot. Make sure it all lines up. Make sure it's straight. And then I'm going to pinch the excess off. Okay. Now, when I'm joining this, let me just zoom in here so you can really see what's going on. Okay, I have options here. I can blend this. I can blend this all together if I want, but I'm not going to because I scored and slipped. Since I scored it and slipped it, it's going to stay together just fine because my piece is leather hard. Okay, I can push on it. That's how I check. If I can push on it and it doesn't give very easily, then I'm good to go. But I'm going to clean that up a little bit under there until my slip squeezes out a little bit. Now I'm using a knife here, but you can use your needle tool to just clean that up a little bit on the inside. And then for the bottom part, I'm going to make sure it's straight, push it down. So it looks like that. That's my handle. I want to put a second handle on here. Okay, and that's the hard part. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, with my fingernail, I'm going to just bring this around so it's about here. Okay, so you have an idea, a rough idea of where the bottom of your handle is going to be. Just put a little marker with your fingernail. You can get rid of it later. And I know that the top of my handle is going right at the change in direction between the shoulder and the neck of the pot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a sponge. This is damp. This is just a damp sponge. And I'm going to just put a little mark on the inside with my sponge so that I can see it. It's very, very faint. And I'm going to spin it around so that I can see that this is in line with the rest of my other handle. So I'm going to score it. It's right here. I'm going to score it. You guys can hear my text going off in the background. And then I'm going to score this. Okay. I'm going to come back here with my second half of my handle that I cut in half. And I'm going to score the top. I'm going to slip this up. Okay. Now, once I've gotten this part attached, this is where I'm going to make sure that I turn this around if I can, so that I get the same pitch on both sides, or ballpark. So it's right about there. Score this right there. If you have to push it up a little bit, you can push it up. So I'm going to come in here like this. Try to get it as symmetrical as possible. You'll be particular when you start doing two handles. And then clean the bottom up. It looks pretty good. I can live with it. Not perfect, but the surface of the piece isn't perfect. I think it's important that you remember that these were not made by IKEA, and we made them with our own two hands. So little bit of your irregularity come out. Okay. And then you can stamp it if you want. I usually will stamp mine at the bottom or the bottom of the handle. Here's my stamp. Push it in. I'm good to go. I'm done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly drape this with plastic, and then I'm going to let it dry for a day or two. Now, I'm in my basement. It's super humid. I'm not going to have to do that probably, but I'm going to do it anyway. Remember, drying your piece, you want to dry as slow as possible. When we get closer to the end of the semester, we may be a little bit more in a rush, but right now we're not. So just take your time, let it dry nice and slow, and you'll be good to go.